here's one thing that I look at when the first thing is that we hadn't seen LeBron smile that much this entire season since Space Jam, right? He was having a great time in the moment, right? And now it's back to reality, back to the Lakers, back to them struggling, back to them not winning games. But it's a couple of things, right? Yes, he was shooting a shot at Rob Pelinka, but I also thought at that point of time that he was praising Sam Presti, it was a point that he could have made of also praising and giving flowers to Troy Weaver.
That's right.
I love Sam Presti. Sam Presti definitely have an eye for the game. But at the same time, Troy Weaver was that guy sitting right next to Sam Presti when he named all those guys that were drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think when a guy like LeBron James have an opportunity to speak that has power, and he has the opportunity to speak, especially when we're trying to get, African Americans in those front office jobs as leaders, although Troy Weaver is in a front office job, but it's great to acknowledge him to let the world know that, hey, he's doing the same thing as the other guy. And I thought Braun missed a golden opportunity right there to acknowledge that person in that situation.
Ramona, you wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, that's a great point, Perk. I was thinking the same thing with Troy Weaver and also Scott Perry, who was in that front office at the same time. They were drafting a lot of those guys. Scott Perry's in New York now. Troy Weaver's in Detroit. The other thing with LeBron and this Lakers team is, look, David McMenamin had a story last week where Rob Pelinka said there's an alignment between the Lakers front office with Anthony Davis and LeBron James in terms of they were on board with this idea that they weren't going to make any moves. There's a difference between telling LeBron or Anthony Davis, like, we don't have anything, we're trying to get some stuff done, and not getting it done, and them being okay with it. And I think that's kind of where this alignment idea came into play, and David McMenamin wrote that, no, there's not an alignment.
Yeah, he used the word totally false was the quote from the source.
And I think that's really the relationship that the Lakers need to work on going forward, which is, LeBron wants to win wherever he has been. And Brian Windhorst has a great story about this on ESPN right now. Wherever he has been, he delivers. Like, that's how you go to finals every single year. You put a lot of pressure on the organization. Now, there was a choice they had in the offseason between Buddy Hield, Russell Westbrook, and DeMar DeRozan. The Lakers chose Russell Westbrook, and LeBron James and Anthony Davis were part of that choice. But one of the other choices, DeMar DeRozan, never got to that point because the Lakers were unwilling to go 3 years, which is what he ended up getting in Chicago, on a new contract for DeMar. So this is, at the time, it was okay because they had the Westbrook option, and that was what everyone was on board with. But when things don't go well, you go circle back and you think about the things that they've said no on, or the things they didn't deliver on, and that's where I think a lot of this frustration comes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. When you get into business with LeBron James, you got to push your chips to the center of the table every opportunity you get. That is the deal you make when you get into business with LeBron James. And it feels like there is, again, a line drawn in the sand, not just by LeBron, but I would say prior to that by the Lakers, right? When you look at the Lakers drawing the line on Russell Westbrook now, it almost feels like, hey, okay, you reported, Ramona, you guys figure it out, right? Like, you guys got yourself into this, you guys figure it out. Well, wait a second. I get the sense that if I'm LeBron and his camp, I'm looking at it as, well, wait a second. I thought we were aligned. I thought we were a team. Now it's us. We're the ones that have to figure it out. We didn't tie you up to a chair and put a phone to your ear to make the deal with Washington for Russell Westbrook. So I do feel like there is a little, I mean, not a little, a big disconnect, Ramona, between these two sides at the moment.
There's a disconnect, but there's also the sense of LeBron and AD were fine with the Westbrook trade. They were.
But so were the Lakers.
Right, and so were the Lakers.
Right.
So I think there is a sense organizationally, which is there was an alignment in the summer, and we can revisit how they got to that place in the summer, but there was an alignment in the summer, and the Lakers essentially said at the trade deadline, there will be better options in the offseason. This is the team we have right now. They don't want to mortgage their future with draft picks and extra luxury tax to make a change for change's sake. And there's
was there ever an opportunity to get John Wall, though? Did LeBron want John Wall? Like, I've never really heard it.
There was an opportunity to get John Wall, but they would have had to incentivize a trade. They would have had to.
The 2027 pick.
But to me, like, you're trying to win a championship with him. Give up the pick. Like, why are you fighting for this pick?
Perk, real quick, go ahead.
The window is small. Pick. If you think John Wall is going to put you over, I think they should have made that trade.
Well, there's some debate about whether John Wall puts them over.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? We talk about pushing forward and putting all the chips and trying to win. They did that this offseason by acquiring Russell Westbrook. We have to realize they gave up some valuable pieces. Like Caldwell Pope was real valuable to them. They took Alex Caruso for granted. And so at the end of the day, nobody thought that Russell Westbrook would come to the Lakers, a top 75 player of all time, and struggle the way that he did. So my whole thing is that, yes, Rob Pelinka has some blame to it, but let's not act like Anthony Davis and LeBron James went behind this as well. And I would have pushed forward too, but nobody knew that Russ was going to struggle the way that he's struggling right now. Nobody would have ever thought that.
No, agreed wholeheartedly.
Live from Los Angeles.
Coming up on NBA Today, Joel Embiid got candid about Ben Simmons when we sat down. And did Daryl Morey hint when Harden will debut for Philly? Plus, what is going on with Zion? What CJ McCollum's getting to the bottom of, and other huge second half storylines to watch for. Also, the legend herself, Sue Bird, joins the show live in a matter of minutes. We've got you more than covered. NBA Today starts right now. It is great to be back in LA. I'm Malika Andrews alongside State Farm actor extraordinaire JJ Redick. And of course, we also have Matt Barnes and Zach Lowe. But we're going to jump right in, gentlemen. We have a lot to get to. Might as well start with a laugh, because take a listen to this great moment from behind the scenes at All-Star Weekend.
James Harden, can you go a little bit to your left?
All right, so Daryl Morey took to Twitter to respond to this video by simply saying, "Find out Friday" at the Timberwolves, hinting rather overtly that James Harden may make his Sixers debut Friday night versus Minnesota. So you know that Steph Curry gif, get your popcorn ready. That's what all of us should be doing. But Zach, I want to start with you here. What are your expectations for Harden's debut?
First of all, the Timberwolves didn't ask to catch any strays in this whole thing. Leave the Timberwolves alone. Second of all, I expect James Harden to suddenly look really healthy and really happy to play basketball. The hamstring might still be bothering him, but I'm betting he's going to gut it out and look pretty good. And I'm betting he's going to play a lot like he did when he first got to Brooklyn. And everyone said, well, oh my God, all James Harden wants to do is dribble the ball. How is this going to work? And he came in and said, hey, I'm perfectly fine being the point guard. I'll do my thing sometimes, but I'm going to meet you guys halfway. I think he's going to meet Joel Embiid halfway. It's obviously going to be interesting to see how they mesh James's pick and roll and isolation game with Joel's post-up game. But I expect James to come out and play almost deferentially to a fault, at least when he's on the floor with Embiid, and fit right in to what should be a really dynamic offense.
JJ, what do you think?
I know Zach is joking, but James has clearly been hurt for almost a year now. His hamstring's been bothering him. My expectations for him right away are actually fairly low. I think this is more about getting him healthy. I don't know if he'll have a minutes restriction or anything like that. But for me, I want to see the explosive James Harden that we saw prior to his hamstring injury last year. And we're going to talk later on in the show about how Joel and James can coexist. Yeah. But the thing I want to say is, like, this is Joel Embiid's team. He is the MVP. He is the most dominant force in basketball. So that, to me, is the most intriguing thing about this team, is how those guys are going to coexist.
Matt, how quickly do you see this clicking?
I think this may take a second. And again, they have, a little bit over 20 games to kind of figure it out. But anytime, I think we've seen that you can't just plug superstars in and expect it to be dynamic chemistry right away. Again, it'll be interesting. This arguably is the best duo in the game, but Joel's been, well, again, we're going to get into it later. Joel's a big popper. James is big on rolling to the basket and throwing lobs. So again, I think the most important thing here is finding that chemistry, but they have plenty of time to do it. And again, not very high expectations, but we all know when James Harden is happy and wants to play, he's one of the best players in the world.
I don't know. They might have some sky-high expectations, but we're going to get into all that more later in the show. Let's move on to the other side of the coin of this trade, Brooklyn. Naturally, folks listened in when Kyrie Irving took to Twitch yesterday, so here's what he had to say.
I'm just saying, just watch our squad after the break. Like, just watch. This is great downtime right now before things start getting going again. And there's like 20 some odd games left, but tell me, watch. Just watch.
Just watch. All right, Kyrie with some big words there, setting the bar and teasing what's to come. So, JJ, does your confidence in the Nets coming together quickly match Kyrie's confidence?
It absolutely does. And this is obviously health dependent, Kyrie availability dependent. But I said this when they made the trade. I think the fit with Ben Simmons is fantastic. Looking down the line to the playoffs, who's guarding Giannis, who's guarding Joel Embiid? That's probably the biggest question mark in terms of having some interior size. I know Drummond's going to try to do the job, but historically Joel has eviscerated him. But look, I'm in on the Nets. I think it's bizarre, by the way, that they are currently sitting in 8th place and yet have the highest odds, along with the Bucks, of winning the Eastern Conference. I don't know that has ever happened before. They were on the other side of the All-Star break, and they are still the favorites betting-wise in the Eastern Conference, and they're in 8th place.
But it sounds like you're still willing maybe to put your money on them. Zach, what do you think?
I think we're going to learn a lot in these next 6 or 7 games, and a lot of it, like JJ said, there's just a lot of mystery about this team. On paper, I think the fit is awesome. Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, and a lot of shooting. Sign me up for that. But when is Kyrie going to be able to play all the games, if ever? When is Durant coming back? When is Simmons playing? Their next 6 or 7 games are like Boston, Milwaukee, Miami, Toronto, Milwaukee again. If they fall too far behind the 8 ball coming up after the All-Star break, this conversation is going to shift from, wait, how are they Vegas favorites, to are they even going to make the playoffs? So I can't wait to see this team at full force with their full roster, but they kind of need it soon because the schedule ain't easy.
Exactly. The schedule isn't easy, and Kyrie Irving, as we just saw, is only available to play in 8 of their remaining games. But Kyrie and Kevin Durant are no stranger to that, trying to build quick chemistry, Matt. What do you see for them?
Strength of schedule is 11th in remaining games, and we're forgetting how good of a player Kevin Durant is. Although he's been healing, he's also been resting. Since he's returned from his Achilles, he's been playing minutes as if he never was hurt. You know what I mean? So although he's been healing from an injury, he's also getting able to rest his legs. So again, similar to Philly, seeing how these pieces fit, but I think they will fit. And from a team that went to not having very much depth to having so much depth after the trade deadline, they definitely won, to me, in the trade as far as the depth goes and how being able to surround these guys with good parts. Again, adding Goran Dragic as a safety blanket, depending on what the Kyrie situation is, and even if Kyrie is there, still a solid veteran to have. I'm very confident in them, and as JJ said, it's crazy to think they're in the 8th spot and they're still favored to come out of the East.
Well, and as Ramona Shelburne said, Ben Simmons is expected to continue to ramp up. She reported that on the show yesterday, and it's going to be a matter of weeks, not months, which is a good thing for them because there's only a couple of weeks left in the regular season.
Yeah,
we have plenty
I was going to say,
more.
Malika, I was going to say, by the way, I was hoping that it would be days or weeks and not months because we're running out of season here.
Tick-tock, that's all I'm saying. All right, plenty more Nets and Sixers talks coming up. You're going to want to stick around. Let's start in the East, where the top 5 teams are separated by just 2.5 games. It's the first time in conference history this has happened at the break. All right, onwards to the Lakers. They're currently in the 9th spot out in the West, which would put them in the play-in tournament. LeBron keeps playing at a high level in year 19 and will try to keep them afloat, as they'll be without Anthony Davis for the foreseeable future. All right, we're going to stay in the West here. The Warriors, they could finally get healthy. But here we go. The Lakers. Check out LeBron James here. Remember, Anthony Davis, he hurt himself just before the All-Star break, so we're not going to see him. It's going to be all on LeBron James' shoulders here. There he is, hitting those threes. He's going to need to be hitting a lot of them. All right, we're going to stay in the West here. We're going to head to the Warriors. They could finally get healthy, and they could have Steph, Clay, and Draymond back at the same time. Those 3 haven't played in a full possession together since, get this, the 2019 NBA Finals. And lots of stars are injured in the Western Conference, as I mentioned. It's AD, it's Chris Paul, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. It's a lot, Matt Barnes.
Lining up perfect for Golden State if they can get healthy.
Well, and then there's Zion Williamson, right, who has been out literally all season. You can see Chris Paul there. He has a hand injury that's going to keep him out for several weeks. You can see Michael Porter Jr. We haven't seen him, or Jamal Murray, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard. There are so many stars that have been sidelined this season, including that guy. So take a look at this, guys. This is the Pelicans season tickets ad. Zion Williamson, you know him, the highly touted #1 overall pick and the face of the franchise, nowhere to be found. So CJ McCollum, he said this on Saturday at All-Star.
He's a big part of our future. Obviously, we're looking forward to getting him back. I haven't had conversations with him directly. I've spoken to some people close to him and look forward to sitting down with him sooner than later. But I don't really. I know about as much as you do right now, but
Really?
I'm going to get to the bottom.
No.
All right, so that was Saturday, and I actually spoke to CJ McCollum this morning, and he told me that since he said this, Zion has reached out to him, and the two have spoken. But, JJ, what's your reaction to sort of all of this hullabaloo here?
This is very abnormal, and Matt, you can attest to this as well. Matt's one of the, I always tell people this, Matt is one of the greatest teammates that I ever had. It doesn't matter if you make a trade for a player of CJ McCollum's caliber or you sign a two-way player. You text him, you call him, you reach out. Like, CJ played 5 games for the Pelicans before All-Star break. It really is baffling. I want to hammer home this point, and this goes for anybody in professional sports. If you play a team sport, you have a responsibility as an athlete to be fully invested. You have to be fully invested in your body, in your work, and in your teammates. That's part of the job description. So to me, I know he's hurt, and I know he's away from the team. There's still a responsibility to just be a good teammate. That's part of it. It's unprofessional, and I don't want to just belabor that, but it is unprofessional. And I would say this too. I'm rooting for Zion Williamson. I think we all are. We want him to be healthy. We want him to be on the court doing amazing things and showcasing his unique skill set. But part of it is just being a good teammate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of the things that sort of gets conflated sometimes is being the best player and being the leader of a team. It's not always the same. But frankly, right now, Zion Williamson is neither. He's not their best player because he's not playing, and he isn't the leader of this team, which is why when you look back at who the Pelicans have sort of put around Zion, it's been folks like you, JJ Redick. It's been folks like Drew Holiday, CJ McCollum, and Garrett Temple, Matt.
I mean, this is when you become a leader, JJ can tell you, it takes a while. And Malika, we spoke about this before we were on air. You know, Giannis learned how to be a leader. Not everyone can come into the league like LeBron and just be a leader. Zion is a very unique talent, and I just think it's going to take some time to learn how leaders move, because that's what they're looking for him to do. But on the flip side, I don't think Zion wants to be there. There's been rumbles, not necessarily from him, but from his family from the jump. And it's hard for small market teams to keep young superstars because there's such an attention to the big markets and the opportunities that you can get elsewhere. So I think the writing's kind of been on the wall for a minute, and the Pelicans have kind of overlooked it, hoping they can change things. But it told me a lot when they don't have him in the season ticket promo, the franchise player. So obviously the Pelicans know something that we may not personally know, but they may know from either his family or him, an inside source. I don't think Zion wants to be there anymore.
Well, Zach, he's eligible to sign an extension this offseason. What do you make of the situation down in New Orleans?
Well, first of all, when we hired JJ, I texted him a congratulations, welcome to the team text message for the record. And yes, this is one of the biggest. This is one of the biggest storylines of the offseason. This is Zion's 3rd year. Every first-round pick after your 3rd year, you're eligible for an extension up to the max. I would love to be a fly on the wall for those negotiations if they even happen, given that Zion may miss this entire season and is clearly disconnected with the Pelicans. Look, JJ and Matt can speak to this. The NBA has a weird labor structure where if you're a first-round pick, the team that picks you, you have no say in that, really. You have some say. You can strong-arm your way here or there, but you don't have that much say. And because of restricted free agency, they essentially have control of you for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. That's a long, long time in a profession that doesn't last 20 or 30 years. That might be your whole career. And for a long time, there's been whispers. Who is the first real star player who, instead of signing that extension, is going to say, no, thank you. I will come back for the 1-year qualifying offer, which he can do after his 4th year, and then I become an unrestricted free agent instead of a restricted free agent. My team doesn't get matching rights on me. I can go wherever I want. And by the way, you may trade me before that because you realize I'm leaving. I don't know if Zion's going to do that. I'm not tied into his camp. It's obvious that there's something amiss with him and New Orleans. And the risk, obviously, is, particularly for you guys who had some health issues, you would normally want to sign for all the money you can get right when you can get it. So this summer is going to be really interesting. I'm not tied into his camp, but something is very, very wrong here, and the entire league is watching.
I think what's also interesting is we're not necessarily talking about the fact, again, you just touched on it, Zach. where is his health at? You're hearing he may have a second ankle surgery, and for someone as big and dynamic and athletic and strong as he is, foot or knee issues are a big red flag. So I'm interested to see, like, where is his health at? Because I think a prime Zion, the best Zion we're going to see is between 260 and 265. He looks a lot bigger than that right now, and I think he's obviously played at a higher weight. So to me, where is the health and stability of his feet? Because if you don't have feet, you can't play.
Well, and you can see the Pelicans' record there with and without Zion. JJ, though, you've been in this locker room. If you're Zion Williamson's teammates, how are you handling all of this when you're hearing, okay, initially there was no conversation between this new star coming in and the star, the person you've kind of been told is, or maybe not told, but seen is the face of this team?
Yeah, in Zion's defense, when you are injured, it naturally feels like you're detached from the team. When you can't compete with your teammates, and he's not physically in New Orleans. I think he's been in Portland. I'm not sure where he's at right now. So in his defense, like, there is a level of detachment. And I would say from the Pelicans player standpoint, they've felt detached from him the whole season. They haven't had him. They haven't had him for games. They've gone out and battled. Willie Green has done a great job. They've got a position to be in the play-in game this year. But it's one of these out-of-sight, out-of-mind things to me. If I'm a Pelicans player, the guy hasn't really been around the team. So I don't think it's that big of a deal in that locker room right now.
And to add to that, that's not, JJ, you know, that's not abnormal. You know, whether it be a star or a big-time player, like most of the time when these stars are injured, they're not necessarily with the team. And the hardest thing is to actually have to come to practice and have to come to games because you know you can't play. So it's not that we're painting Zion as some kind of diva. He doesn't want to be around the team. This is normally how it works when a star is unhealthy and he's trying to get
right. It's just a matter of out of sight, out of mind. Mounting a scoring streak that would last 23 straight games in which he scored at least 25 points. And Embiid's scoring streak, it was the second longest in 76ers history, only behind Allen Iverson, and tied for the longest in the NBA this season. That's with LeBron James. So since the streak started, that was the day after Christmas, Embiid has averaged a league-leading 33.4 points per game to go along with almost 12 rebounds, which has put him at the top of the MVP race. So Embiid is now the favorite to take home his first MVP award. He's followed by Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Of course, they are the last two winners prior to this season. So I sat down with Embiid in Cleveland. Take a listen.
I'm the most unstoppable player in the league.
Here's Embiid.
Yes! Embiid, my goodness! Blocked by Embiid.
You've been in the conversation before for most valuable player, but then usually an injury has gotten in the way. Why are you the MVP this year?
I want to let the game speak for itself. That's what I've been doing this year. You know, you look at everything we went through this year, the drama, you know, that was adding a lot to the way we played. And, you know, having to take my game to another level and, you know, being a better playmaker. And for us to win every single game, I have to be dominant.
Ben Simmons remains sidelined in Philly.
I don't care about that man, honestly.
The blockbuster is done.
Ben Simmons is going to Brooklyn.
Ben Simmons told me that he didn't speak to you on the way out. When was the last time you guys spoke?
I'll be honest, a week or two before the trade deadline. He's a great player, and I think, you know, whatever he's going to add to Brooklyn, he's going to take him to another level too. I did a lot of chasing around, you know, try to get him back and, you know, try to, you know, make him feel comfortable again. You know, it was time, you know, I didn't care anymore.
I mean, if you had pride, then maybe there would be hurt that comes with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because if I had pride, you know, outspoken, you know, and I'm honest, you know, I could have said, you know, a lot of stuff, but I still did whatever I thought was good to do as a teammate.
James Harden is headed to the Philadelphia 76ers.
They have the best duo in the game of basketball.
What did you see from James Harden when he was in Brooklyn?
You look at, you know, what he did in Houston. You know, he was a scorer, and obviously he's one of the, you know, best scorers of all time. And then he got in the role in Brooklyn by being a playmaker, you know, 10 assists a game. So, you know, that's what we're gonna look for him to do.
He described being in Brooklyn as scary hours.
Scary hours.
Has he already come up with a moniker for what it's going to be when you two are on the court together?
I try to go by what he said, scary hours, but instead I say scary minutes. For all the 48 minutes that we're going to be on the court all together healthy because of, we have a chance. We can accomplish something big. We already have, a great system in place, and, when you add, James, it takes you to another level.
All right, a revealing conversation it certainly was. That was about 3 minutes. We actually chatted for about 10, and he really hammered home to me just how much he felt he chased Ben Simmons. He said he talked to him in the offseason. He talked to him in the fall. He talked to him before he left. So this was something that happened over and over and over, but that's in the past, and I want to spin it forward, Zach. How will Joel coexist with James Harden? Do you see it being a fit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Matt Barnes earlier brought up the point, a very good one, that James has historically preferred centers who really roll hard to the rim. Clint Capella, that kind of player. Joel Embiid is not that kind of player. He likes to pop or short roll. But you know what? He's so good that if he just rolls to 12 feet, that's going to be a layup for him or 2 free throws for him. You're not going to be able to keep this team off the free throw line, by the way. And yeah, James is going to have to figure out what he's doing while Joel posts up. But you know what? Superstar talent tends to solve a lot of those problems on offense. It's hard to have an offense that isn't fantastic when you have these two guys. I'm actually more interested in how it works on defense when James has really preferred to switch almost everything in his career, and Joel is not a switch center. He's a drop-back center, so they'll have to problem solve on that end too. But offensively, is it perfect? No, but superstar talent is what it is. They're going to be dynamite.
Superstar talent and health fixes a lot of things, Matt.
They will, yeah, I agree with Zach. They will definitely make it work. And again, as I pointed out earlier, to me, I think we'll see flashes early because they are so talented, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time because Joel does prefer to pop. And normally we're thinking the biggest guy in the NBA, get your big butt on the block. But this guy is so effective from the three-point line, and he's shooting 37%, a few points above the league average, then 44% from the mid-range, and he can post up. He's probably right there with KD, the most unguardable player in the league. I just think it's going to take some time for them to figure out that pick and roll, and then also, as Zach mentioned, that pick and roll defense, because they're probably trying to hide James somewhere, but at some point he's going to get switched, and then they're going to have the big come up and set the second pick, and that's going to be a little interesting factor with those guys. But again, talent outweighs a lot of different things, and it's just going to take some time. I think we'll see some immediate flashes of how good they could be, but until I think, come playoff time, right before the playoffs, we'll really see how good this team is.
Well, that's when you want to be hitting your stride, though. What are you expecting from this tandem, JJ?
Greatness. I'm expecting greatness. Like Matt said, put talent together and figure it out. And I know in talking to the Nets folks, they felt like James Harden was a basketball genius. I've played with Joel Embiid. He is a basketball genius. These guys are both talented enough and smart enough to figure it out. My question is, what is the rotation going to look like? We know that James and Joel will start games together, and they will finish games together. But Doc has always liked to play bench-heavy units. Will he stagger their minutes throughout the game so that Joel can be at his best in the post and James can be at his best playing iso ball? That to me is something to watch.
I think one thing they lost, though, to your point, though, JJ, is they lost that depth. And that's what Brooklyn picked up. So we both played for Doc, and I've come off the bench and started there, and he does like to ride the bench and find time for his stars. But, they've kind of traded away their key role players. So I think it's going to be a lot of heavy lifting on their two stars.
Well, and James Harden has